Hello, Marge. How are you today?
I'm doing fine, thank you.
Well, thank you for coming. Um, I invited you here today because um, as you know, I interview different people, different artists in Bakersfield. Um, this actually happens to be episode 6 of the Artists of Bakersfield of my YouTube series. Those of you that already know me, I'm Jared Oreca, and I interview various artists here in Bakersfield. Um, Today we are here with Marge Smith. Marge, um, again, thank you for coming. Do you consider yourself an artist?
Okay, I don't um, know that I think of myself as an artist, but I know I do enjoy painting and the arts. That's just something that I've always liked for a long time.
Wow. Now, have you been doing this most of your life? How far does that go back?
Well, I would say when I was in grammar school, uh, I would draw with a pencil. Back in those days, you really didn't have access to oil paints or things of that nature, so I always enjoyed drawing. And then in high school, they did have a class, and so I did some drawing in there and colored chalk drawings and pencil drawings, but that's about the extent of it as far as any class or training.
Did you always have a passion for it? Is this something that just kind of kept doing for whatever reason?
Uh, yes, I did. From high school, I went into nurses training, and during that time, I did a lot of pencil sketching and drawing when I had time, because there was uh, a lot of studying to do. But after that, when I got married, then raising a family, I really didn't have a lot of time for that. And so I didn't do um, drawings or any kind of painting at that time.
Now, did you ever consider painting or any form of art as a living, or was this always just something, a personal passion that you had?
Oh, this was a personal thing. I would never have tried to make a living from it. Um, but I did have a son who was interested in art. And so from the age of 3, when he started drawing, then we always encouraged him to keep up with the arts. And so when he was 11, my dad set up some oil painting lessons for him because they didn't offer it in school. And so he started painting and at a very young age. So I was around it all those years, but it was my son doing it. And I always encouraged him and often wished that I could um, do some too, but when you're raising a family and working, you just don't have the extra time for that.
You mentioned your son does he do art for a living?
Yes, that's his passion, and that's how he makes his living. He has an art studio in his home, and then he has paintings in many galleries throughout the country.
Well, you must be very proud of that.
Oh, I'm very proud of him.
And from what I can tell, that pretty much stemmed from you. He got that from you based on this painting I see here.
Well, um, uh, maybe he did get at least the desire to, but of course he's much better than I am. But I always wished that I could take some lessons from him. He ended up going to the Pasadena Art Institute, and that was his beginning of starting his own business when he got out of school. So through the years, I always say, Keith, you're going to have to teach me one of these days. I want to be one of your students. But that opportunity never really came.
I think that's really neat that you started as the artist in the family. You didn't pursue it as a career, but your son obviously got that from you and did make a career out of it. I think that's really neat. How do you reflect on that?
Well, I'm happy to see him succeed like he has. But I had an opportunity once I retired to join a group in a painting class. And so it was an oil painting class, and I just have thoroughly enjoyed that.
Tell us about this painting you have sitting next to you. You painted this, correct?
Yes, I did. My kids all got together and took me on a trip to Europe. And during that time, we were in Venice, and I took a picture of this area. And when I got back, I painted that because that was so special to me. So I asked my art teacher if that's something she would help me with, and so anyway, this is one that I painted from a picture that I took.
Well, that's amazing. I think it's really neat. I think that's something you should be very proud of.
I am proud of that. You know, not all of them turn out. You have in your mind's eye what you want your picture to be, and it doesn't always turn out that way, but this one I was pleased with. So.
Well, that's really good. It turned out very nice, if I do say so myself.
Thank you.
Now, if you could paint anything at all, what would it be?
After doing a lot of different kinds of painting, I kind of like the outdoors with trees, maybe even buildings, but I like those with kind of countryside views.
And when you say countryside views, what kind of landscapes is that like mountain landscapes or lakes?
I would say mountains and trees. Mountains and trees. There's so much beauty in that, and colors. And I like the coloring.
You know, mountains and trees, they've always been, as far as pictures go, they've always been my favorite kind of pictures. Sadly, nature and I don't get along. I have allergies, so when I get out in that beautiful stuff, it makes me sneeze, and nature and I just kind of keep each other at arm's length. Respectfully, of course.
Mm.
Now, Marge, do you like nature things? Did you ever go hiking in the mountains or anything like that?
Oh, yes. I've done a lot of hiking and camping. Growing up, my dad was an outdoorsman, loved to hunt and fish. So we went a lot, and just throw a sleeping bag out on the ground and stay wherever he happened to want to go. And so I did a lot of that growing up.
Now, we did a lot of camping growing up too. Those are neat memories.
Uh-huh.
Do you have a painting of your dad fishing or any kind of fishing painting?
No, I don't, as a matter of fact. I hadn't really thought about that, but that would be a neat picture.
Would be neat to find maybe an old picture of your dad fishing with somebody or just fishing by himself and draw that.
Uh-huh.
Paint
Would be.
that. Now, Marge, what in your artwork, what inspires you the most?
Well, um, right now I happen to be in a class with a group of women that we all seem to get along well, and it's an inspiration to me. All of us love to paint, and our teacher is an inspiration to us. And it's like going to a therapy group when we get together. We always talk for a while before we even start our painting. And then during our painting time, we talk, laugh, have fun, and it's such a relaxing atmosphere. And that's for all of us in the group, because we all get the same kind of satisfaction, fun, and enjoyment out of our painting.
Well, that's really neat. I never thought of those painting groups as therapy groups at the same time. That's really neat that you get that out of that.
Yes, we talk about that a lot and jokingly say, well, we're going to our therapy group, and that's our painting class.
Now, being an artist yourself, clearly, do you have a favorite artist that you like that also inspires you?
Well, I guess I would have to say my son, Keith Wicks. Um, he's an inspiration to me and amazes me with his abilities at painting. And I think he hasn't told me that, but I can see that's like a therapy to him also. And when he can work at that and do that in his life, it's um, he's happy and content. And so I guess I have to say that he inspires me.
That is so neat that your son that inspires you. Usually when I ask that question, people say, oh, I love, Monet, or, they name all these famous artists in history that they based their style on. But I just think that's so unique and so neat that it happens to be your son that is a professional artist and he's your inspiration. Now, is there anybody else in your family that's an artist? Is it just you and your son?
Um, just my son and I. Although I will have to tell you that Keith had started painting when he was very young, and my dad is the one that took him in for lessons for painting. And he was 11 years old when he painted his first big oil painting. And so I always had that hanging on our wall. And then my youngest son, when he was 11, he asked Keith, "Will you teach me to oil paint?" And Keith says, "Well, if you get an A in art, I will." And he did. So Brian got an A. And Keith then had him paint a little painting like Keith had done at 11 years old. So I hung it on the wall. And then several months later, I come home one day, and here's another little painting on the wall. And I said, "Well, where did this come from?" Well, one of my other sons, Doug, had painted a painting and hung it on the wall. And he says, "Well, they had their painting up there, so I painted one." So then, later on, one of my other sons came, and this is like a few years later as this was transpiring, and here's another painting on the wall.
You were telling us about your son, Bobby. So he's an artist too, is that?
Well, he, when I came in one day, there was another painting hanging on the wall, and this was a picture of his truck. He had painted a picture of his pickup truck. So I had these 4 paintings now hanging on a wall. And so my other son, Jeff, "Well, I don't have a painting up there." And I said, "Will you paint one and I'll hang it on the wall?" Well, as it turned out, he didn't. And one day he was just being silly and sent a little cartoon character. So I copied that, put it on the wall with his name. So I had all 5 sons with paintings on the wall. Then my daughter, I ended up getting one of her drawings from school and putting it on the wall. So all 6 kids had paintings hanging on our wall. Then my little great-granddaughter says, "Well, I would like a painting up there." And I said, "You paint me a picture and I'll hang it on the wall." So a few weeks later in the mail, here comes this to Grandma from my granddaughter, and it was a little painting. And so I hung that on the wall. And then one of my granddaughters came down. "Well, I want to hang something there." So she painted a picture, and we hung that on the wall. So now I have this wall with a painting of all my kids and grandkids, and none of the others really do painting at any extent, but just enough to have a painting on the wall at Grandma's.
Wow, that's a whole family of painters, of artists. It sounds like it kind of came from sibling rivalry a little bit. And said, "Well, he has one. Why don't I just do one?"
Right.
Do you see yourself as a teacher as well? Teaching art?
No, I would not see myself as teaching because I never really went in depth with painting so that I would know details on paints or how to put colors together or that type of thing. So, no, I wouldn't teach. But now my son um, did teach in San Francisco uh, for several years at the College of Art, but I don't have any aspirations for that.
Well, Marge, I see you have this second painting here. Can you tell us about that?
Well, I've always had feelings for paintings of the Madonna, of the Blessed Virgin Mary. And over the years, I have ran across several different views of it. And I saw this one, and it caught my eye because I like the coloring and all. So I painted this for that reason. And since then have painted some others too.
Well, that's an amazing painting. It's beautiful.
Thank you.
You did a fantastic job with that one.
I was very pleased with the outcome of this one.
Well, you should be. It's very beautiful, really.
Thank you.
In fact, in my opinion, I think it's even better than the one you did of Venice here, as nice as the Venice one is.
Thank you.
Well, you definitely have not only a passion, but a talent for art, and you're very good at it. Now, you said you don't see yourself teaching, but do you see yourself as an inspiration to others? I mean, you've obviously been an inspiration to your family.
Yes, I would say I would encourage anyone who has a passion for art to try it. Even if you think you are good at it, give it a try because you'd be surprised what you're able to accomplish, even if you don't think so.
Well, that's wonderful. And on that note, I think we will call it a day, as they say.
Okay.
Well, Marge, thank you so much for doing this. It's been great having you. Thank you again. Goodbye.
You're welcome. Bye.